Most people are blessed with the ability to hear and even perceive the minutest sounds. Those who engage with classical music know that there is always a constant note played, around which the other musical sounds revolve. This note is produced by an instrument called the tanpura. Musicians rely on this constant sound to anchor their melodies. Vocalists, singing in various pitches and unique styles, always return to this foundational note. The tanpura provides the essential bass note, sa or adarshaja, upon which all other instruments are tuned. It also offers the fifth note, pancham pa, which supports the sa. The tanpura does not play melodies but provides a steady, resonant background sound that enriches the primary melody. Its soothing drone creates a meditative and immersive atmosphere, essential for both vocal and instrumental performances in Indian music. In households and temples across India, there are shanks, or conch shells. The sound waves produced by a conch shell enhance positive psychological vibrations, leading to improved focus and performance. Listening to the sound from the conch shell can bring about serenity and calmness, enabling the ears to hear this sound on their own. It is also said that the ancient sound of Om is produced when the conch is blown with deliberate breath. This eternal sound is the source of all Vedas. When the conch shell is brought near to the ears, one can hear a subtle sound emanating from it. This sound is constantly emanating, even when the conch shell is placed back in its spot, though it becomes too subtle to be heard from a distance. Chirkut, a curious child, was once asked by his mum to fill up a thermos flask with freshly prepared hot tea for an excursion. He opened the lid, wondering how the thermos flask could keep things hot or cold for so long. His father explained that the inner side of the outer wall and the outer side of the inner wall of thermos flasks are silvered to minimize heat loss due to radiation. When the heat from inside the flask strikes the silvered wall, it gets reflected back into the flask, because silver is a good reflector of heat. Shukra also heard a mysterious sound when the empty thermos flask was held close to his ear, a method often used to check whether the flask is good or broken. If they hear the sound, the flask is good and can be bought. Many people can hear a certain whistling sound when near bamboo trees. A specially selected bamboo strip with holes becomes a beautiful musical instrument known as the bansuri, or flute. The sound produced by skillful flute players is soothing and melodious, often bringing about a transcendental state. There are various scientific explanations for the sounds produced by conch shells, tanpuras, bamboo, and other musical instruments. Many schools teach classical music through a systematic approach of identifying and naming sounds, and then combining them to produce different ragas and melodies. There is a whole science behind the sounds produced. The most visible distinguishing factor of all these instruments, the conch shell, bamboo, thermos flask, and many other vessels from which mysterious sounds emanate, is that they are all hollow in shape. A conch shell with a mollusk inside would not produce sound when brought near the ears. Bamboo filled with any material would not produce sound. The tanpura, if it did not have a hollow bulbous base with a hollow arm, would not produce sound. Thermos flasks and other vessels are hollow inside, which is why they produce sound. The essential quality of these objects is their hollowness. When they are hollow, sound is emanated. The basic principle for sound emanation is being hollow inside. The liveliness inside and out makes its presence felt through the sound of sounds. Human ears are miraculously made to cordon off 98% of sounds, which, if heard, could bring about madness. Even the 2% of sound reception by the ears is sometimes overwhelming. If a person sits down in a corner and remains relaxed, they can hear and distinguish all the sounds coming towards them. The sound of traffic, the humming of the fridge, the wind lazily coming through the windows, the distant buzz of telephones and cell phones, the distant drone of a plane in the sky, and many other sounds. Listening to these sounds for a few minutes increases the capacity to remain still. The person then tries to sit down, remain silent for prolonged periods, and listen to these sounds. Eventually, they might arrive at a state where they can hear even minute sounds, like someone breathing in the adjacent room. Gradually, the person becomes hollow from within. In their bid to listen to the different sounds coming from all around, their mind, which was in a state of chatter, becomes still, their body becomes still, and their breathing slows to a very rhythmic cycle. They observe that they have reached a center within themselves. All the surrounding sounds cease, and suddenly there is an absence of sounds. They no longer listen to the sounds coming towards them, or rather have transcended listening to those sounds and are enveloped in soundlessness. At this point, they have become completely hollow and empty inside. With all the outer sounds stopped, they now hear a peculiar sound, a constant hum like the flow of a waterfall, but at a very low frequency. This is the sound of the absence of all sounds. This sound escapes to be heard when the person comes out of the silent sitting state. However, with daily practice, there comes a time when they can hear this soundless sound, even after coming out of the relaxed state. This sound can quickly calm them when they listen to it during breaks from daily affairs. This sound is sound of no sound, or the sound of sounds, which is constant every second of the day. Once heard, this sound signals that there is a source from which it emanates. This source, omnipresent, ever alive, all-pervading and always in the present, comes forth into recognition. Constant listening to this sound imbibes the notion that there is a source, the source of the entire universe. Being able to listen to this sound on its own thus becomes the greatest tool in knowing the liveliness. The conch shell and musical instruments serve as great examples of hollowness. Striving to become hollow like them can bestow an uncanny perception of the soundless sound, leading to know the source.